Not only are the Houston Rockets the sleeping giant in the Western Conference, I actually believe the Rockets are the sleeping giant in the entire NBA right now, as they are really positioned to make some serious noise. Not only this upcoming season with an improved, fun, young roster, but with a collection of trade assets to really shake up the NBA. Just a little bit under a year ago, when James Harden was traded from the Philadelphia 76ers to the Los Angeles Clippers, I recorded a video calling the Philadelphia 76ers the sleeping giant in the NBA. Flash forward to today, Paul George is a Philadelphia 76er. In that video, I highlighted Paul George as a realistic potential free agency option for the Sixers after angling their team toward a bunch of expiring contracts, max cap space, and utilizing that Tyrese Maxey cap hold to their advantage. Obviously, things panned out extremely well for Daryl Morey, and well, look at that now. His successor in Houston, Rafael Stone, was perhaps looking at that strategy and seeing a way to maybe transform the Houston Rockets as we currently know them, which is a really good basketball team. Going into this past offseason, I had highlighted how I thought they were going to be greatly improved going into the 2023-2024 season. They nearly doubled their win total in a very impressive turnaround as they entered stage 2 of their rebuild. But now Rafael Stone, Tillman Fertitta, and the entire Rockets organization wants to step on the gas and really push toward becoming a contending team sooner than later. Now, that is the most difficult step. So how exactly is Houston going to get there? And that is a great question, and one that does not get answered very easily. That is the toughest thing to do in all of basketball. But when we look at the Rockets' cap table right now, they are very, very well positioned going into this upcoming offseason. So not only are the Rockets really well poised right now to have a good competitive season this year, where I expect them to be a playoff team in a very loaded, tough Western Conference, they're very well positioned financially as well. Fred VanVleet, entering technically the final year of his contract that is guaranteed. He has a near $45 million team option that the Rockets could theoretically, if they feel like there's better options available for them, turn down or decline. Now, I'm not guaranteeing that they will, but that is a realistic possibility. Additionally, Steven Adams, his $12.5 million will be coming off the books at the end of this season. I loved him as a buy low option for the Rockets this past trade deadline when they acquired Steven Adams. I think he's going to be a tremendous backup big man for them this upcoming year, and I think someone who's going to contribute a lot to winning ways there in Houston. You also look at Jeff Green. His $8 million is coming off the books as well, as Jae'Sean Tate's near $7.5 million contract also coming off the books. With just those 4 players in mind, they are saving upward of $65 million from their current roster's payroll going into next season. $65 million in the NBA, that is a lot of money to work with, whether that's out in free agency or in the trade market. We're going to discuss both options here for Houston in this video, and why, again, I think they're the sleeping giant in the NBA. But what you might notice is some of the restricted free agents that they have on their roster, and they're 2 polarizing names right now, Jalen Green and Alperen Sengun. Sengun, I think, is clearly the best player on this current roster, although Jalen Green has had some real flashes, some real moments, and it's a really dichotomous situation there in Houston, as a lot of Alperen Sengun stands don't really like Jalen Green. Some Jalen Green fans don't really appreciate Alperen Sengun, and I think most real normal Rockets fans like both of them, and that's exactly the way that it should be. And I think right now, especially the mainstream media and some real loud voices, especially covering the Houston Rockets specifically, there's a core belief that these two guys cannot coexist together. Now, I don't necessarily believe that to be true, and adding fuel to that fire has been the lack of contract extensions, not only for one of the two, but for both of them. Both Jalen Green and Alperen Sengun have not been given contract extensions up to this point, despite being eligible, despite fellow draft picks in their draft classes like Cade Cunningham, like Evan Mobley, receiving long-term contract extensions with the teams that drafted them. So why has Jalen Green and why has Alperen Sengun not received those big-time extensions? There's a couple of different reasons. One, Alperen Sengun, I think, is clearly worth that rookie max extension. I think he has showcased that to this point. Jalen Green, maybe not quite as obvious of a decision there. He's had some moments where you definitely think, yes, he is worthy of one of those quote-unquote fun maxes, but at the same time, there's been stretches of play where he gets benched at the end of games, and you're not completely sold yet on Jalen Green being that face of your franchise, cornerstone pillar piece for the Houston Rockets. While all of these questions about Jalen Green, is he worth a long-term rookie max extension or not, the real answer to why Houston has not extended either of these two players comes down to their future and why they are the sleeping giant right now, not only in the Western Conference, but in the entire association. And it comes down to a very similar situation that the Sixers just went through with Tyrese Maxey, where his cap hold was significantly cheaper than what his actual rookie max extension number would look like. The truth is there as well for both Jalen Green and Alperen Sengun. If the Rockets just flat out wait for these two guys to enter restricted free agency with maybe even a little bit of a wink-wink agreement of, hey, we'll pay you later, just play for us now, we'll go into restricted free agency, we'll take care of you after we spend up some cap space, that's where the Rockets could really be well positioned to finally give contracts to both Alperen Sengun and Jalen Green, the two core pieces, the two core tenants on their current roster. So if you're following with me here, it's not well, we're not sure yet if we want to pay either of you guys. It's more of a, trust us, we're going to probably pay you, especially Alperen Sengun, very possibly Jalen Green. We'll see what happens. I think the biggest thing that Houston has up their sleeves right now is waiting to pay them to prioritize cap space, prioritize cap flexibility. And now you might be saying, for who? Well, let's first look at the projected long-term rotation pieces on their roster. Amen Thompson, Reed Shepherd, Jalen Green. I think those are the three core pieces long-term in the backcourt. Obviously, I'm excluding some of the veterans here. I'm excluding Fred VanVleet. I'm excluding Dillon Brooks. I'm excluding Steven Adams from this projected long-term rotation piece outlook. But the reason I'm excluding those veteran pieces is to show how strong this young core nucleus is and how deep it is as well. They have three really strong, reliable guards in their backcourt. Amen Thompson maybe has the highest potential of everyone on the entire team with his absolute downhill blur ability, just to get by anybody almost at any given time. I think his chemistry on this roster is going to continue to improve. He's a very unique type of point guard. I know some people maybe even question if he's a point guard. I still am in that belief camp that he is. Reed Shepherd, I thought, was a home run A+ selection in the 2024 NBA draft. The Rockets were one of the teams most desperate in need of shooting. They got the best shooting prospect in this entire draft cycle from this past year. Jalen Green, obviously we've talked at length about already as a player, still embodying the upside and the talent here. He's a 22-year-old player who's been placed in an alpha role for the most part early in his career. That is not easy to do, and it's not easy to win playing that way around such a young and I would say rather slight guard. I still think Jalen Green is growing and improving as a player each and every year, each and every day, and I think this past year was the first year we really got to see him, one with a really strong, structured head coach, and then also with a core team around him that was built to at least try and win some games in the NBA. And I think Jalen Green, although it was a mixed bag, did deliver, especially toward the end of the season once he found himself a little bit more comfortable and in a situation where he felt like he could really exert his skill set on the game. Cam Whitmore was an awesome rookie to watch this past year. Didn't get to play a whole lot, but when he was on the floor, you really noticed him. He just popped every single time he got out on the court as a scoring option. Honestly, he's a scoring dynamo with his downhill aggressiveness, the willingness to take and make difficult threes. He's not gun shy at all, and I think that's one of the things that's going to allow Cam Whitmore to continue to stand out despite being around such good young talent around him. He has that inner confidence, that skill set as well to match that goes into being a premier scoring threat off the wing. I think his game is going to translate still extremely well, and I think there's going to be a lot of improvement we see from rookie year Cam Whitmore, where there were some significant flaws, specifically his passing vision, which I had highlighted coming out of college a couple of draft cycles ago to where he's at now. I think we've even seen some improvement, and I think we're going to continue to see that grow over the next 3, 4, 5 years. He's nowhere near a finished product yet at this point. Jabari Smith Jr. as well, I think, has adjusted well. from where he was as a rookie to a sophomore going into now his third year in the NBA. I think he's going to stand out again this season. Tari Eason, obviously we didn't get to see a ton of last year because of some injury stuff, but I think with him being on the court again now in a backup role with probably the best bench in the league, with Amen Thompson, Reed Shepherd probably both coming off the bench this year, as well as Cam Whitmore coming off the bench and Steven Adams being the backup center, that is a really well built out 5-man bench unit. Now obviously it's not like the reserves are just going to all check in at the same time for the starters, but I think Ime Udoka has a lot of strong options to mix and match the starting lineup with the reserves, and honestly he can shorten the rotation down to 9, keep it really strong that way at times. If there's injuries, they shouldn't miss a beat really with how deep and strong they are throughout the course of the season. And Alperen Sengun is the headliner. I think he is the primary core piece currently on this Rockets roster. And if there is one thing to maybe nitpick at for the longevity of the Rockets as a potential scary sleeping giant team in the Western Conference, it is that top dog position. Do they have that 1A superstar player? I think there's a lot of optimism that Alperen Sengun could maybe blossom into that guy. He's a very unique, skilled big. Obviously, comps to Nikola Jokic, Nikola Vucevic. Obviously, the skilled big men are who he's going to typically find comparisons to. And it is just rare to find a big man with the post-scoring moveset that he has, the playmaking feel, and obviously emerging in other key areas of his game, his touch, his floater, the one-legged fadeaway that he's starting to add over time as well. Alperen Sengun is just a unique player and someone that I do think the Rockets are going to be able to rely on. Maybe not if as a 1A, maybe as a 1B option, and that's where we get into how do they add pieces to this core. And you might say, well, 2025 NBA free agency should be where they start, especially if they're angling toward cap space with potentially turning down Fred VanVleet's team option and letting Jeff Green walk and getting off of some of these salaries. Although when we actually look at the 2025 NBA free agent class after some recent extensions, this class is either old, with guys like LeBron James and Jimmy Butler being the core headliners, or a little underwhelming when you look through the depth of the class. There's not a ton of high-level free agents in this year's offseason. That should not be shocking for anyone with the reality that pre-agency is the newest, biggest thing where players oftentimes sign extensions, get that supermax contract with their hometown team, and then ultimately request a trade later on. The Rockets aren't probably angling toward traditional cap space for free agency like the Philadelphia 76ers did this past season, as I previously have highlighted. I think the Rockets' pathway is a little bit different, and that's where we start to look at some real trade options. This past summer, actually on my birthday, Adrian Wojnarowski had reported the implications of the Rockets trading with the Brooklyn Nets to acquire some of the Phoenix Suns picks, obviously facilitated the Mikal Bridges trade to New York, and in return swapped some of those Nets picks for future Phoenix Suns picks. And if you've been watching the channel for a while, you know I am very, very pessimistic about the future of the Phoenix Suns. But does trading for Kevin Durant really make that much sense if you're Houston? I just went through your young rotation, your really young core nucleus of players, 7 really great young pieces. Does adding a nearly 36-year-old Kevin Durant, and if you trade for him a year from now, nearly 37-year-old Kevin Durant, actually make any legitimate sense? I think the answer to that is an obvious and evident no. Now, according to Wojnarowski's reporting, obviously the most credible reporter in all of the NBA, he said that they were angling for Kevin Durant. While I do believe that what he is reporting is true, with Phoenix being reluctant to break up their big three right now as Matt Ishbia runs that franchise into the ground, what I really think the most likely outcome here is that within the next 12 months, Houston looks at themselves in the mirror and says, wait, why would we want Kevin Durant when we could get this guy instead? Devin Booker. I think he is the player that will change the Houston Rockets from a team that everyone's kind of interested in and a frisky, young, fun team with a lot of talent and a lot of young pieces looking for their opportunity. What they really need right now is that 1A superstar dynamic guard to go alongside Alperen Sengun. Now, it doesn't mean you have to completely dispose of Jalen Green. What it could mean, though, is maybe Jalen Green becomes an elite level 6-man for you off the bench. What I really do believe, though, is that Devin Booker is the piece that the Houston Rockets will end up with. That is my hard, firm prediction here. Devin Booker within the next 12 months will be a Houston Rocket. And what could that trade package look like? Well, there's a few different options in here, but remember, with the Rockets potentially having cap space, they would not have to match dollar for dollar. And guess what? Phoenix getting some real cap relief wouldn't be bad for them either, thanks to Bradley Beal's contract. Matt Ishbia, again, like I've said, has ran that franchise into oblivion. So as a result, blowing it up might be a harsh reality that comes to fruition here, because not only is Phoenix going to be in real potential danger zone after not winning a playoff game this past year, if they fail to win a playoff game again this upcoming season, then they're really in trouble, not only because they'll internally look at themselves and say it's not working, but the star players on their roster will also realize this isn't working and they'll look for greener grass elsewhere. Kevin Durant has not been reluctant to request trades in the past. And guess what? Devin Booker, after looking back at his 2021 NBA Finals run with Chris Paul and Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson and DeAndre Ayton around him, Jay Crowder around him, he's going to look around and say, hey, where'd my whole team go? Guess what? They're all in different cities now. Some of them for good reason. Chris Paul, Jay Crowder, they've aged. But hey, Mikal Bridges, a really valuable piece. Cam Johnson, a valuable piece. The players who were on that same timeline as Devin Booker were moved. And Phoenix sacrificed all of their draft assets at the same time. Houston has a chance to bail Phoenix out a little bit, but it's going to cost them the best player that they've had in the last 10 years in Devin Booker. Phoenix here gets Dillon Brooks. They also get Tari Eason. Maybe you want to substitute Tari Eason out for a Jalen Green in this deal. Maybe you want to substitute Tari Eason out for a Jabari Smith Jr. Maybe you want to substitute Tari Eason out for a Cam Whitmore. There are variations to this trade that could make some sense for Phoenix depending on which player or players they prefer over Tari Eason, if any. Then they get 4 first-round picks. They get all of their first-round picks back in 2025, 2027, and 2029. They also get a Rockets unprotected first in 2029 as well. The Rockets still do have to work around the Stepien rule, preventing them from trading their 2025 and 2027 first-round picks, so keep that in mind if you're looking at any mock Houston Rockets trades. And the Rockets, in return, get the best player possibly available within the next 12 months, and that is Devin Booker of the Phoenix Suns, someone who, coming off a gold medalist run for Team USA, was just extremely valuable in that Olympic run for them, played in a variety of different roles, both as a on-ball defender, as an off-ball catch-and-shoot guy, and just really kind of was a nice connective piece as well en route to winning that gold medal for Team USA. He was a vital piece, a piece that honestly could not have been replaced, in my opinion, on Team USA. So Houston, looking at Devin Booker not only as a player who has been a premier 1A scoring option for a team that has made the NBA Finals, but also looking at a player who could maybe even, despite being the most talented player on the team, could probably fit around the other talent that already is existing there in Houston as well, as that young talent looks to mesh together. I really like the idea of Devin Booker in Houston. I think with the collection of assets that Houston has acquired from trading away some of those Brooklyn Nets assets to get these Suns assets, they really have the ball in their court when it comes to acquiring whichever player they want from Phoenix. As soon as the Suns, either by force, by a player requesting a trade, or by necessity realizing it's not working, as soon as they decide they're going to trade some pieces, Houston's the first team that they're going to call. Because Phoenix, if they want their future back, like Sonny Weaver on draft day, he's going to have to call the team that has their assets. And in this situation, it is the Houston Rockets. And that's why I think the Rockets, not only do they have a lot of really great future young pieces, they have all the leverage. And they've got the assets, they've got the future, and I think they are the sleeping giant in the NBA. What do I expect for them this upcoming season? And then how does that end up playing out long term? Like I said, I think they're going to be fun, frisky. I think they're going to be a playoff team this upcoming year. But when it comes to future seasons, it's really going to hinge on what they're able to get done on the trade market. Obviously, again, the questions with Alperen Sengun, the questions with Jalen Green, their contract extensions. I think everything Houston is doing right now is extremely smart and calculated. So Rockets fans, take a collective sigh of relief. I think your team is moving geniusly right now. I loved everything that you guys have been doing. the draft picks, selecting Cam Whitmore where you did, selecting Amen Thompson where you did, selecting Reed Shepard in this past draft. I think all of the draft choices, I think trading for Steven Adams, signing Fred VanVleet, signing Dylan Brooks, you go back to all of my analysis on the Houston Rockets over the last 24 to 36 months, it's been all optimism. And I think the recent season, winning 40 plus games, was a great sign of proof that, hey, things are trending upward there in Houston. I think this upcoming year, in 2024-2025, will be another big forward step. And then after that, I think the Rockets are very, very well positioned to add that premier top-end talent. And Devin Booker, again, is my prediction to land in Houston and playing for the Rockets within the next 12 months. I hope you guys really did enjoy this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more content, and we'll catch you in the very next Utility Sports video.